to introduce myself quickly. I'm relatively new to the WordPress community. I've got a strong hosting background, which I'll talk to you about in a second. Really the theme of this event, as Dan told me when he invited me to present, was really to talk about WordPress and our business. So look, what I'll talk about through this presentation is a little bit about myself, my background, the history at Rackspace where I was previously, why I joined the WordPress community, and why ultimately I joined WP-Engine. So there's me. Looking a little bit aggressive there, or worried for some reason. That's what happens when you get a camera in your face. I was at Rackspace for a long time. I joined Rackspace 11 years ago when there was a handful of people in the data center, and I left when there was about 1,000 people based out of Hayes, and the revenue had grown from 1 million to about 250 million. So I've had that very rare experience of working for a company which has gone through extremely fast-paced growth. And over that time, you obviously have to balance really delivering great customer support for the whole of that time whilst you're growing and the company's getting stretched and the systems are getting stretched. But also in terms of finding the right people and the right staff and getting them trained up, and how dealing with changes in the industry and technology, which is probably one of the greatest threats and issues we have to deal with when we're at Rackspace. The agenda today, I'll talk a little bit about hosting, why I believe in WordPress. I also read Gartner's Magic Quadrant quite recently on CMS systems, and I thought it was quite relevant to actually put out some of their findings on WordPress as a platform, both positive and negative, which we could share obviously as a community. Because of course, as we look to grow our market share of WordPress, ultimately you need to move into new markets, and enterprise is a relatively new market for WordPress. Just out of curiosity, how many people here have actually heard of WP-Engine before? Okay, that's good. That's very good. And how many of you actually generate revenue from WordPress? So, yeah, majority. Okay. I'll also talk a little bit about my vision of WP-Engine and then finish with Q&A. Okay, so hosting. I always find hosting and talking about hosting quite amusing. Having been in the industry for 15 years, a long time, and I've seen lots of change, I've always found it quite difficult to describe hosting in the past. My parents, having a catering background, I don't know where France has gone, where it's disappeared to. There it is. Yeah, obviously a name like Fabio Torlini, I've got an Italian background as well, which ultimately means, when you're raised in the UK, your parents have a restaurant somewhere on the line. My parents had a restaurant. So when I talk about hosting, I'm pretty sure I'm convinced my parents are throwing parties all the time. Even though my dad does know I work in the IT industry, therefore it means I have to fix his printer on a continual basis. That's as far as their understanding of what I do goes. But as we know, look, if you look to try and summarize hosting is at the center of the World Wide Web. All of the data, all the sites we build, and depending where you look, I found some statistics that there's either 250 million websites out there or 1 billion websites. So, depending on what number you look at, all of those sites need to live somewhere, and all of that data needs to live somewhere. It needs to be hosted either on-site or off-site and so on. So hosting is really at the center of what drives the World Wide Web and where we all generate our income ultimately. So over the years, the hosting industry has changed immensely. When I first, before I joined Rackspace, I was business manager running the hosting division for an internet service provider. And really all you really sold was space and power. Lots of flashing blue lights. It was all about keeping the data center at the right temperature, keeping it clean, but customers really did all of the hard work. That changed over time. When companies like Rackspace came along, hosting companies started to look after a lot of the infrastructure, and you got services such as managed hosting, and really the infrastructure was extremely complex. If you had a large site and you couldn't afford to fall over, you had to invest a hell of a lot in load balancers and a complex front end and plus of databases and so on. And you really needed a strong partner that could control that infrastructure for you. Then of course the cloud came along. Amazon launched their cloud services probably about 5 or 6 years ago now, maybe 6, 7 years ago, and they were turning over $1 billion in the flash of an eye. They hide their results still, but everybody estimates them to be around the 4 or 5 billion mark, just purely in cloud services. And cloud computing obviously changed the way everybody runs their infrastructure now. it's quite. Our president once described cloud computing in a very funny way when we were talking to a journalist. You know, one of the key benefits of cloud computing. He described it and compared it to a packet of crisps, or traditional hosting as a packet of crisps. When you had a server, you know, you're running about 10 to 20% of the infrastructure, and the rest of the time it was just being wasted. And he described the packet of crisps in the same way. You know, you've got about 10% crisps in there, and the rest is wasted. And obviously, cloud computing came along and removes all of that. This was the big challenge which we had at Rackspace. Actually, moving your business from a traditional hosting to a cloud computing company was extremely challenging, both internally and externally. You know, getting the staff to understand what's changing in the industry, and also our customers were coming to us and talking to us and wanting to know more about cloud computing and didn't know how to react to the changes in the industry and this newer technology. So this was probably the biggest issue and the barrier we had to growth at Rackspace, was to really overcome that monumental change in technology. But of course, you can't be resistant to change. I mean, you have to accept it. And Rackspace was behind actually launching OpenStack, which was an open source version of their cloud platform, which has now been taken up by people like HP, AT&T, NTT. You know, a lot of large telcos are actually using IBM, using Rackspace's cloud infrastructure, which is called software which they actually built and delivered. In terms of cloud computing, look, there's 101 different advantages of cloud computing. Cloud is here to stay. And if you ask me, I think 90 to 100% of all infrastructure will run in the cloud in the not too distant future. You know, we have obviously talked already about it being more efficient. Obviously, people like pay-as-you-go. You know, obviously all the scaling. The fact that if there is an infrastructure issue, well, you kill it and you fire up a new server. In terms of your application, you know, most of you guys are developers. You know, you build your application directly on top of the infrastructure, and the application actually controls the infrastructure through APIs, deciding, you know, how much infrastructure you need to scale up and down and so on. So cloud is here to stay. And when I was leaving Rackspace and wanted to change roles, I knew that I wanted to stay in cloud. You know, the direction I wanted to go in was I guess, the question mark. I mean, SaaS was the area that interested me most from a cloud computing perspective. SaaS is delivering software as a service, and that's the ultimate version of cloud. It's taking whatever the customer needs, packaging it up in a finite way, and delivering it to the customer on a pay-per-use basis. And if you look at the successful SaaS companies out there, most of them have actually come from, a lot of them actually come from a marketing background, which is my background at Rackspace. So you've got people like Marketo, Eloqua, or CRM systems, obviously like Salesforce, HubSpot. All of them have really grown absolutely massively over the last 4 or 5 years. And all of them specialize in a specific field. And that's really where, from a career perspective, I wanted to move in that direction, actually pick up or work for a SaaS organization. As I was saying, to be a successful SaaS company, you really need to specialize. To deliver a SaaS as a service, you have to know that application inside out, you have to understand your customers' needs inside out, and you can't do that by offering 21 different applications. You've got to focus on one or two. That's why all the successful SaaS companies I talked about a second ago specialize in specific areas. And we're better to focus than obviously CMS and, you know, with the market leader, WordPress. 60% of the market. 60% of the market from companies who utilize CMS systems. But I doubt today WordPress generates 60% of the CMS revenue. You know, I don't know what the actual figure is, but I'm sure it's much smaller than 60%, and that's our opportunity, you know, to actually go for a larger slice of that pie and that revenue. Some of the positive points, which said enterprise analyst mentions and talks about when they look at WordPress. You know, these are all positives I think all of you guys probably know inside out. Ease of use, the fact that with very little training somebody can actually utilize WordPress very effectively to create content and deliver content. Simple to use, extremely elegant, with low initial costs and no actually ongoing costs. So look, overall we know that WordPress is a great platform, which is why, you know, 24% of all the sites out there now are already built on WordPress. 24% of all the new sites being created are built on WordPress, which is good and bad. Good that we're maintaining market share as a community. Really, ideally, you want that to be higher, so actually growing market share. Already about 70 million WordPress sites out there, and a massive community delivering 29,000 plugins and growing. A little bit about us. That's Jason Cohen. So Jason Cohen founded our company 5 years ago, and the reason he founded us is he's actually a blogger himself, so he's got a popular blog called A Smart Bear, and he often used to get slash-dotted. So I don't know if you know the term slash-dotted, but it's when a site with high amounts of traffic links to your site with low amounts of traffic, and then your site goes boom. And that used to happen to him on a regular basis. So he thought, look, I could probably do this better, and that's why he founded WP Engine, really. He's already started about 4 or 5 companies. This is his most successful today. He's still our CTO, and he's a really good guy, Jason. Founded in 2010, headquartered in Austin, over 27,000 customers, 260,000 WordPress installs, and a staff of about 250 now. Obviously, most of them are actually customer-facing, and obviously they live and breathe WordPress on a daily basis. So why am I here? Our customer base is quite global. So of those 27,000, there's about 3,000 already in Europe. So we've got a large customer base in Europe, some really good partners here, and they were asking really WP Engine to open up a European office. Obviously, I'm related to the industry, it's an area which I wanted to move in, so it was an easy conversation for both of us to have. And that's obviously my role, is to open up the presence of WP Engine in Europe, starting here in London. So look, in 5 years the company's done really well. It's grown massively, and there's a few key reasons why. One, that everybody in the company loves their work. They are WordPress fanatics. There's some really good guys who embrace the community and embrace the platform at our organisation. For us to create that WordPress platform means we need to constantly innovate. So it's not just purely delivering WordPress, but it's creating staging areas, easy backup facilities, Git developers. More recently, creating disaster recovery functionality, so you can actually duplicate content across data centers. Analytics to actually improve the performance of the actual application itself. So, for us, it's all about innovation, loving what we do, and ultimately making the lives of our customers easy, so customers can focus on what they do best. Got a small team. This is us, myself in the middle. We discovered Dirty Burger in Shoreditch, which we love. James is a little bit funny about the mustard, but overall, he's outvoted. There's 3 of us, and we vote 2 to 1 that we like Dirty Burger. So this is James here. Give everybody a wave, James. Say hello.
Boom.
Myself and Imran. And really our first initial focus is looking after our customer base here. That's what we want to do. As I said, we've got about 3,000 customers, so looking after our customers. And we're looking to grow the team. There'll be 5 of us very soon. And at some point in time, we'll be bringing support into the UK as well. So we deliver support on a 24/7 basis out of the US, but we want to create a virtual base out of the UK. And really we want to work with the community in helping drive the overall WordPress industry. It's good for you, and it's good for us. Some more of those findings. These are the findings we've got in regards to where the market is going from an enterprise perspective. So look, you may not agree with all of these bullet points, but this is the perception that CIOs and CTOs and VPs of marketing at enterprise companies have with regards to the market direction, and on the next slide with regards to WordPress itself. So the marketing guys are actually making more of the purchasing decisions when it comes to IT as a whole, and definitely when it comes to the content management system. Actually, I read an article last week which actually said marketing guys have larger IT budgets than the IT guys these days, which I found quite interesting and not too surprising when you think about all of the systems and SaaS systems which we talked about before, and the marketing guys are making the decisions on which of those SaaS systems to purchase. There'll be a consolidation of CMS systems. So as companies have grown, they may have ended up with 5 or 6 CMS systems when they want 1 or 2. So there'll be a task, or there will be a task and a job to do to consolidate those down. Obviously, when they consolidate those down to 1 or 2, we want to make sure one of those 2 is obviously WordPress. Interoperability is becoming a differentiator. What people are trying to do here are build digital businesses. And when they do that, they have to integrate all of their systems. You know, it may be their back end, it may be their marketing automation software, it may be an e-commerce system, whatever. There's a whole bunch of systems which people will want to integrate into their CMS. And you know, this is, I think, a no-brainer down the bottom. High-level execs tend to choose a low-risk vendor. You know, you've all heard the adage, which you don't get fired for choosing IBM, and that people in large enterprises tend to go for a low-risk vendor. So what's their negatives and downside when it comes to, you know, WordPress? So why do some of these enterprise guys perceive WordPress as not the right platform for them? Not ideal, where the key scenario requires integration. So back to the previous point, the previous slide, when people are looking to integrate more and more applications into their CMS system, that's potentially a roadblock or downside for us. So that's a perception we need to overcome. We talked about those 29,000 components, which is extremely positive. But again, I guess the downside is, you know, when enterprise guys, you know, don't necessarily understand the industry, look at those 29,000 components and say, okay, how many of those are actually secure and which ones can I really trust?
You found a site with 29,000 plugins, Jeff?
No. Yeah, no. But yeah, they're perceptions, aren't they? Some customers experience content sprawl. You know, WordPress is a great system to actually build and deliver content. The downside of that is sites become more and more complex as more of that content gets created, and what they really want is some governance in there so they can control that content as it gets created and delivered. They may have perception that WordPress doesn't or can't meet their aspirations as they want to innovate and really develop a digital business. And WordPress lags behind other content management platforms such as in areas such as context awareness. So I don't know if these are barriers which you're overcoming or you're coming across as you talk to some of the larger organisations you may do business with, but these are the findings which you've got to come across. Yes?
So what does that last one mean?
Areas such as context awareness is different platforms delivering content across different platforms and so on. Recognising different platforms delivering the content in different ways.
Do you mean that it doesn't know, when you hit a WordPress site, it doesn't know what platform you're accessing it from?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's a perception. I mean, we know that WordPress can do that. It doesn't
exactly,
successfully. Yeah. But okay, and you know, ultimately, we're all here to generate revenue and work in the WordPress industry. So, you know, it's about us working together to overcome some of those perceptions and drive WordPress or create a larger WordPress market and drive our market share up. So if we work together, I think that's something which we can easily do. Okay, we have created a code as well, so for people who do want to try WP-Engine, free personal plan for 3 months, or utilise that same discount over a 3-month period. So that's something which is available to everybody here.
What fraud you on
our customers? Okay, thank you. Sorry, I do tend to talk quite quickly when I'm presenting, so if you've got any questions.
Just one question. You're talking about pushing into new markets. Have you thought about the possibility of opening up to resellers? Because I've had a big problem at the moment. Just something really simple like plugging into like the WHMCS API.
Yes.
Would open up such a massive market for people like me and other people to bring a lot more potential clients onto your platform.
Depends when it comes to resellers. We haven't looked, or we're not planning to white label our platform, but we are looking to release very soon functionality which allows developers to create sites and then pass those sites and bidding across to their end users seamlessly. So functionality which basically users already.
And to give people access to things like MySQL without going through the main dashboard, so they'll have their own version.
Of MySQL, I don't know. We'll take that offline. We'll talk about that. But yeah. But definitely creating functionality in the platform which makes reselling the services a lot easier.
And then that into WHMCS for us.
Any other questions? No? All good?
Well, actually, I've got.
Yes, go.
I've been using WP Engine for
about a year,
Yes.
and I'm really happy with it. I guess the only thing, and I ought to address this to support, is that with my other sites, not on WordPress, because low-end customers, I haven't put on WP Engine yet, I use iThemes security, and it gives me reports of various hacking attacks against those sites. I've no idea what goes on in WP Engine. I'm sure I'm told it doesn't need any extra security plugins, but I don't know how it's being protected
Yes.
and what happens if something goes wrong. I know that I can use security to
Yes.
recover a site, but how do I know how safe my sites are?
Well, yeah, I can answer that relatively easily. I mean, the whole purpose of the platform is to make WordPress as secure as possible. So we've changed and we've written about 3,000 rules in Nginx and in the actual platform layer itself to make the platform, well, to make WordPress one faster, but also more secure. And then in terms of any potential, well, we obviously upgrade for you on that side, and we work with a security partner. Can you remember what they're called? Security, who warn us of any potential security issues, which we will then look at the platform and fix those security holes for you. So that's our role really, is to make it secure. If you do get hacked, look, and it can still happen, we will restore the site on your behalf as well. So we take that responsibility.
Just to add on to that, I have to say that I had a VPS before I moved over to WP Engine, and in fact I don't have to worry about that anymore and don't care. It's so nice. I don't care how it's secure as long as it doesn't get hacked.
Yes.
Can I ask, we've got a question here.
Yeah.
This kind of perception that WordPress isn't ready for enterprise level, do you think as a community there are better things we can do to resolve that perception or improve that perception?
Yes, I think without a doubt. I mean, being clear about what those perceived issues are, and then obviously building solid content and solid case studies which battle against those issues and actually prove that they are perceptions and not reality, I think is what we need to do, and that we need to work together to do that. One, to build those case studies, and then two, to get those stories out into the wider market.
Any more questions?
Just can I ask you, it's the first time I've heard of WP Engine, but essentially does it deploy my WordPress site from, so for example, GitHub? If I've got my code hosted on GitHub, will it listen to commits and then build that out onto your platform, or what are the sort of mechanics of it?
Yes, look, we obviously build WordPress there, so it's ready to utilise, and then we can integrate with Git as well. So, so yes.
Yeah, there's a team that we've got that specialises in Git as well, so if you want to learn a little bit more about it, there's a guy called Daniel I can introduce you to, and we can go into the mechanics of how Git works, because it's a very nebulous area, quite complex, but yeah, happy to take you through the detail.
Lovely. Okay, thanks. Cheers.
My question. So we talked about the complexity, or the perceived complexity of, let's say, the 29,000 plugins that are out there, and whether they're secure or good for what you need. Are you planning on doing anything about that, so to make it easier for people to actually choose what to use?
Yeah, not at the moment. It's something which we talk about all the time, though. We do have a blacklist, a very short blacklist of plugins we don't accept on our platform for performance issues or security issues, but it's a very small list. We do have a white list as well, but we don't publish it. The reason we don't is because we obviously want to be Switzerland when it comes to themes and plugins and so on. Having said that, we do advise our customers. So if customers come to us and need specific help, we can actually look at those 260,000 sites running on our platform and say, look, if you're trying to do this, actually 50% of our customers utilise this plugin already. So we do give that kind of data to our customers if they request it.
Just to add on to your point there, I use Git. If you put your SSH code in and just push it, it's straight in. It's really simple.
Jenny?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, beg your pardon.
That's all right. First and foremost, any plugin that goes into WordPress.org's repo goes through security checks that are actually like 2 pairs of eyes looks through the code, every single one. I don't know if it's that for all the older ones, like the super old ones, but definitely the newer ones. There was a team of 6 people who literally have a backlog of a ridiculous amount. I think it's at the moment at about 4 weeks backlog of any plugin that goes into the repo. So that's one thing. There's also a thing called WP Scan, which you can actually run on the command line. And there's also a website called WP-VULNDB.com, which lists every single vulnerability in WordPress, any theme, and any known plugin as well. And it also lists when those updates got fixed. So
What's that,
whenever it got fixed. WP Vulnerability DB. WP Scans Vulnerability Database is the full name of the site. I will tweet it out for you guys. But basically, like, just do your due diligence on the companies that are creating them, how often they're getting updated and stuff like that. It's simple security things. You can't expect any hosting company to be looking after other people's plugins and stuff. And this is not just only plugins that are created and putting on the plugin repo, but also all the markets out there as well. There's so many markets for WordPress. It'd be stupid for any one person to be able to say, yes, you should be using that, or no, you shouldn't be using that. You should be doing your own due diligence and actually working it out yourself.
Yeah, I think that there is a problem in the market to be solved. So
yeah, I mean, like, there is a website which WP Scan uses that actually lists everything.
yeah,
all
from
the
a
major
security
security.
standpoint, there's also a problem of what should I use it for, and I think that is a real problem, especially for corporations and non-technical people that wouldn't. So it's not a concern about security; it's more about what's the good solution for the problem that I have.
Functionality versus bloat.
See what I mean?
Yeah, two-pronged question about, I've got a friend who might be interested in your services. I'm potentially thinking about someone who hosts like sites for their clients at the moment somewhere else. I noticed that from your pricing plans you've got like a plan for like 10 websites, and then the next step up is 25. So what happens if someone's got actually 15 websites they want to look at? How does that work?
There's overage charges between the plans.
Right, okay.
You know, if you go to 10, you go to 11, it's not an issue.
Okay.
At some point in time, it may become more affordable to go to the next plan up, and actually we tend to reach out to our customers and let them know when it's cheaper and more affordable to operate.
Okay, and if someone wanted to come and have their site supported by you, do you help give any support from in terms of migrating sites from existing hosting?
Yes, and no, we don't offer migration services ourselves, but we do have migration partners. And then from a support perspective, yeah, the support's free and it's 24/7 afterwards.
Right.
That's support. Depending on which plan, it's tickets, phone, and chat as well.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Brilliant. Thank you.